Chapter 29. She was silent for several seconds, and when she spoke her voice was barely audible, even to his enhanced hearing. It was my senior year, my last class before the Labor Day weekend. I had a night class. He wanted to ask if she meant when she was at A&M, but he kept silent. He didn't want to stop her, for fear she wouldn't start again. She needed to get it out. I was headed out to my car. There were other people around, people I'd seen around and after class, but only one was anywhere near me. He wasn't from my class, but there were a lot of night classes. I had my bag on my shoulder, and had just gotten to my car. I was digging my keys out of my pocket when there was a blinding pain through my entire body, then nothing. Steve's arms tightened around her. He ran his hand up and down the length of her naked back, silently assuring her he had her, and she was safe. When I woke, I was laying on my back, tied down in the back of what looked like a cargo van. I tried to break loose, I tried to shift, but I couldn't. A soft sob escaped. "I'm right here." He kissed the top of her head and held her tight. "You're safe. It's just a memory." I should have been able to break free. It was just rope. She fell silent again for several seconds, gathering courage to continue. He shoved my skirt up around my waist and ripped off my panties. Her voice changed, it became more distant. It was as if her mind wasn't here in the bed with him, but was there again, with it happening to her all over again. I fought as hard as I could while I was tied, but he hit me. He slapped me a few times, then he used his fists until I stopped fighting. I gave up. I knew he was going to kill me. Her voice had gone flat and lifeless. The dull tone made his heart ache, but her words ripped him to shreds. "Shush. You're all right. You survived. You're here with me safe." Steve couldn't stay quiet any longer. He knew he couldn't let her see how angry he was. Comforting her was the only thing he could do. It hurt. It hurt so bad when he pushed himself inside me that I screamed. I couldn't help it. Her voice was starting to clog with tears. I screamed until my throat was raw while he rammed himself into me over and over. When he was done, he started hitting me again. Over and over until there was nothing. Steve felt her tears soaking his chest where her head rested, and he was glad she couldn't see the ones running down his face. "You're almost done, baby. Come on, finish it." He knew she needed to get it out, to purge it. It wouldn't be a magic cure, but it would let the pain start healing. He could tell she hadn't dealt with the attack, not really. Instead, she'd shoved it back and tried to forget about it. It had worked for a while, but now it was surfacing again, bringing the nightmares with it. I woke just before dawn. I was lying on the pavement beside my car, my skirt still around my waist. My bag was on the ground beside me, and my keys still in my pocket. I got in my car and went home. "You didn't go to the hospital?" "I couldn't. I'd already started healing. I would have given us away. Besides," she hesitated, "I couldn't tell anyone." "What about your con?" Steve asked. She shook her head against him. "No clan there, the school is neutral territory." He sighed, still holding on to her. "You didn't tell your family either, because they would have swooped in and taken you home." She nodded against him. "What about friends? Anyone?" She rubbed her face against him. "No one." His heart ached for her, suffering such a brutal attack all alone. This happened what? 5, 6 years ago? Yeah. This is why you don't sleep, isn't it? Yeah. Something occurred to him. "Have you slept with anyone but me since?" "No," she whispered. "He did something to me that night, something I don't understand." "What?" "I don't know. It was weeks before I could shift again. And you already know about the trouble I've had touching men. He wondered what her rapist had done to trigger that kind of reaction. Why hadn't she been able to shift for so long? Had it been a psychological reaction? You don't hurt me, she whispered. Being with you has been wonderful. She was quiet for a while. You've shown me it's not all pain and fear. Some of it is beautiful too. Steve started. Somehow he knew, but he had to ask anyway. Jade, baby, were you a virgin when he raped you? She nodded, fresh tears running from her eyes and hitting his skin in scalding drops. God, baby. He pulled her close, not knowing what else to do. She hiccuped. I was afraid. Afraid he would come back. Afraid he would kill me like the rest. The rest, he prompted, realizing there was more to the story. I was his second, but by the time I'd healed enough I could go back to class, there were 3 more. Her arms wrapped around Steve's body and she clung to him. I was the only one that survived. He beat them all to death. Steve closed his eyes and tried to calm himself. His anger wouldn't help her, it wasn't directed at her anyway. Please tell me they caught the bastard, that he's not still out there. They caught him. He wasn't careful. All of his victims were covered in DNA, and he had a record. It only took them long enough for the DNA to come back for them to identify him. Then they caught him within 24 hours. He didn't bother to run or hide. How did you get through it? I healed. Faster than I could have explained to anyone. While healing, I decided I would never be anyone's victim again, ever. I enrolled in martial arts classes and learned everything I could. I got a permit, and as soon as I finished school, I started carrying my pistol with me almost everywhere. That's why you carry a gun? He still wasn't sure he liked the idea. He knew her parents had taught her to handle a weapon, but the idea of her feeling as if she had to carry it didn't sit well with him. It is. He let out the breath he'd been holding. If it'll make you feel better, you can bring it in here. My place isn't my cons, and if it makes you feel safe, you can keep it beside the bed. Thank you. She placed a soft kiss on his shoulder. But I don't think I need it. I'm safe when I'm with you. When I have your arms around me, your scent on my skin, even just knowing you're near, and I feel like I'll always be safe. I'll protect you with everything in me, he whispered against her hair. She relaxed against him, and he loosened his arms until his grip on her was more comfortable for them both. He couldn't stop himself from asking. You said they caught him. What happened to him? She tensed for a moment, then relaxed again. They killed him. He'd raped and killed 4 women and left plenty of evidence. The jury took less than 3 hours to return. They found him guilty and sentenced him to death. How long did it take? He had to know. When was he sentenced? 6 months ago. Did you go? No. Her voice was distant again. I didn't watch the trial or attend the execution. I didn't want to ever see his face again. I don't blame you. He tightened his arm around her shoulders, hugging her for a moment before relaxing again. It's still early yet, do you think you might be able to go back to sleep? She rubbed her head against his shoulder and yawned. I don't know. You comfortable where you are, or do you want to move? I'm good if you are. Her words were slurred with sleep. She was drifting off already. I'm fine. He lay there a long time, listening to her breathe, while he tried to rein in his temper. He wished the son of a bitch wasn't already dead. He'd love to hunt him down and kill him himself. It was just as well though. He'd have to leave her to hunt her rapist down, and he didn't want to do that.